Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambeau channel. A popular XRP chart analyst says that there is a vertical breakout on the horizon for XRP specifically. And this is coming at a time where, frankly, there's a lot of sideways price action, a lot of chop in the crypto market as a whole, even though there have been some coins that have been breaking out, even though XRP's up, I think, about 8% over the last week. So outperforming a number of coins. If you just look at the market as a whole, mostly sideways price action. And this comes, there's all sorts of expectations. I mean, I'm going to highlight some major developments, including a particularly relevant news event here that's absolutely going to impact the crypto market. We'll see which way, but I'll be highlighting in this latest video. There's just a lot going on. Now, I will tell you that I continue to see the same thing that I was highlighting yesterday, just in a general sense from the chart analysts that I follow, which is to say that there are a handful of analysts that think in the short term, yes, we could pull back, but almost 100% of them are still arguing that even if that happens, it doesn't mean that the charts are broken. It doesn't mean that we're not going to see Bitcoin enter a final parabola upwards. It doesn't mean that we won't see, it doesn't mean that we won't see alt season. It doesn't mean that XRP is not going to have a face melting rally to the upside. It'd be weird, in fact, if we didn't see those things, because those are the types of things that mark the top of every single crypto market cycle. So for the first time in history, this isn't going to happen. I just don't buy that argument. So yeah, it'd be weird to me if we didn't see, frankly, a push for XRP that dwarfs what happened in November of last year, because the way that XRP behaves historically is you get a major thrust upward, which we got in November of last year after XRP had underperformed for years and years and years because it was attacked by the SEC. But you got that, and then normally what you see after that is an accumulation period. Oh, we've gotten that all right. And then you see a final burst, and the final burst historically is much, much more substantial than the first leg up. So I'm very optimistic. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. As I record this video, it is 8:08 p.m. Central Time, Tuesday, October 28th, 2025. XRP is $2.61. Bitcoin at 112,479 bucks. So you can see it's a sea of red, but nothing too terribly deep. Just down a few percentage points for most coins out of the top 50 here over the last 24 hours. But like I mentioned, XRP is up over 8% over the last 7 days, despite that being the case. So it is outperforming a lot of coins. And I got to tell you, as somebody that's been holding XRP for almost 8 years, and given that XRP's probably been, what, like 30 cents for most of the time that I've been holding it, somewhere around there, even if it's a little higher than that. To see that over the last year, even after all of this, even after the pullback for XRP, XRP is still up 401% over the last year. 401%. We were told a year ago that it was impossible. It's never going to happen. XRP is just going to keep falling towards zero, especially against Bitcoin. Those predictions aged like a fine milk. That is unquestionably the case. And of course, crypto market absolutely follows what happens in stocks. Take a look at this post from Ryan Dietrich. He is the chief market strategist at Carson Group. I'm a big fan of this guy. I just started following him within the last, 3 or 4 weeks, so more recently. But he just consistently puts out incredibly interesting factual information, particularly having to do with traditional finance, usually anyway. And the reason I find it fascinating is because, again, crypto follows the stock market. There is a very real correlation here. And so what normally happens in particular circumstances is what he keeps highlighting. And here, you can see this chart titled, "The Weak Part of Post-Election Years is Ending. Average post-election year for S&P 500 from the year 1950 to right now." And he says post-election years tend to rally starting right about now. So look at that. That's where we are right now. And you can see that blue's 2025, and this black line is post-election years. Look what happens on average. At this point, historically, you do start climbing, and history does rhyme with itself. So it's not like anything's an absolute guarantee, but if you're going to play the odds, why wouldn't you bet that humans are going to continue to behave the same in similar circumstances when presented with those similar circumstances? You're probably going to be more right than wrong going that route. That would be my guess. Here's a post from chart analyst Credible Crypto. And this is from just less than 3 hours ago. This is 5:20 p.m. Central, and now it's 8:11 p.m. Central. So Bitcoin has been falling a little bit. I mean, here's the 24-hour chart for Bitcoin. You can see it was up to almost $116,000 earlier, and so now it's at $112,420. Here's what Credible Crypto had to say about that, and if you know him, it's not going to surprise you. He's not exactly freaking out here. He wrote, Bitcoin just ranging here on lower time frame after tagging our first upside target, the fair value gap, which is in blue on the screen here. Says, overall, looks healthy, and I like to think we are setting up for continuation to the highs. Could still pull back deeper, but even at range lows, we have an untapped daily demand zone we would need to get through to break down further. And those of you looking at the screen can already see he's talking about dipping into the $106,000 range. Even that would not break the charts on a higher time frame. This is not concerning. And he's right that this is normal stuff that happens in crypto, even in bull markets. This is not a time to be bearish, at least not big picture. I mean, yeah, you're going to get pullbacks even in bull markets, like I just said a second ago, but it doesn't mean that you're entering a bear market. Here's a post from on-chain analytics firm Santiment, and this is some sage wisdom right here. The typical lemming retail speculators will continue to be wrong. Oh yes, over and over and over again. And so here they wrote, retail traders are mentioning their interest in dip buying at a high rate following a mild market retrace Tuesday. Historically, when dip buy calls are high like this, it's followed by a mild short-term retrace and further downside pressure. Ideally, the true best dips to buy are when the crowd is not expecting markets to bounce. When retail thinks there has been enough pain, they usually get humbled when they find out there was even more awaiting them. Once their optimism, FOMO, turns to fear, which is FUD, this is when we see the biggest rallies. And so where are we right now? We're at a moment where basically on-chain analytics firm Santiment is saying, it'd be nice if more people were afraid. If you want to move to the upside, that's a pretty clear takeaway. So, it's one more source you can look to that's warning, hey, it's possible that you could see the market go a little bit lower. And this is from this evening. This is at 5 p.m., so just a few hours ago. So that's why I keep saying, I've been warning in recent days, there are a number of analysts, even if it's not most of them, there's a lot of them that are saying, hey, in the short term, we might see a bit more of a pullback. But outside of like one analyst that I follow quite literally, I can't find analysts that say we're entering a bear market. I can't find it. That's a super rare position. Here's a post from on-chain analytics firm Swissblock, and despite the sentiment being what it is, despite the pullbacks, including today, you know what's been happening recently? Whales have been purchasing Bitcoin, and so even if you're like me and you don't really care too much about Bitcoin because it's the worst cryptocurrency ever created, technologically speaking, and that's fact, it just is. It's the least sophisticated. It's the first, so that shouldn't be surprising. Even though that's the case, whales, they've been buying. And so even if you don't care about Bitcoin, maybe you don't even hold it, this matters. If you want your XRP to be worth a freaking fortune compared to what it is right now, you better hope Bitcoin rallies ridiculously high, because the more money flows into that pet rock of crypto, the more money, the more profit will ultimately be taken from it and then rotated into other coins, altcoins, like Ethereum and XRP and all sorts. Just go down the list. And I think XRP is poised to be one of the greatest beneficiaries of such a setup. And historically, that is how things unfold. And so Swissblock wrote the following. Whales are reloading. Accumulation has increased during September and October, with Bitcoin flowing from exchanges into whale wallets. They're accumulating into strength, positioning strategically ahead of the next potential leg higher. And I'll just say this, whales do not get wrong-footed. It doesn't mean that the market can't go lower after they purchase, but if they're wrong about where we are cyclically, they'd be screwed. I doubt they're wrong about that. It's not that every single whale, and this is the smart money, it's not that they buy the literal bottom, but they're buying in a time period when, yeah, you're either at or very close to the bottom, and then when it reverses, if they're short-term guys, then they're going to sell. And that does happen. Like, you will get whales that are playing those swings. You see that all the time here. I'm just saying, they don't think this thing is over, or they wouldn't be buying. If they didn't think there was another leg up, they wouldn't be doing this, very obviously. By the way, people in crypto still playing with fire because reasons, and they're stupid. Here's a post from Watcher Guru, and this is from several hours ago. Just in, $210 million liquidated from the cryptocurrency market in the past 60 minutes. That's right. Price go down, people get liquidated. And that was reposted by Scott Milker, aka the Wolf of All Streets. And I like this post, so I'm just going to read it to you because it made me laugh. He wrote, "Stop getting liquidated on 2% moves, you degenerate donkeys." I don't know, there's just something about that. I was like, degenerate donkeys. It's stupid. STLPID, stupid. And it's amazing because just a couple weeks ago, you had the biggest liquidation event in crypto history. $20 billion with a B liquidated in an instant. And people still are like, well, yeah, I know that happened, but I want to play with the fire too. And here you go, more liquidations. You freaking idiot. You have at your disposal the opportunity to achieve life-changing wealth by buying these scarce digital assets and holding for some period of time. You get thousands of percentage point gains if you do it right. That's what history shows us. But that's not enough for you. You gotta use leverage. You gotta introduce that risk, use that leverage so that you can get liquidated. Okay. You do you, girl. You do you. I'm gonna do me. Which means I'm gonna do nothing. All I do is, after I buy stuff, I do nothing, and then I win. Net worth go up substantially, life-changing. Here's a post from chart analyst Jelly. That's a fun name. Area of interest reached for Bitcoin after a little drop this evening. By the way, I'll just pause note. This is at 4:46 p.m., so just a few hours ago. It says, form that higher low overnight, cut some rates tomorrow, and we can keep pushing for a $116,000 reclaim. And that would be nice to see. And of course, we're going to get some more news from Jerome Powell, Fed Chair Jerome Powell. He's going to step up to the podium tomorrow afternoon and flap his face hole, and he's going to make syllables come out of that face hole. And then the market's going to respond. And it's going to go up or it's going to go down based on the syllables from the face hole. Man, this is a stupid way to run a freaking economy. Like, what? It's a stupid way to run the government, monetary policy. Oh my God. Oh, it's so stupid. I won't rant in this video about it, but I had to say it. It's so stupid. I despise this setup here. Oh, I wish the government were more hands off with it. Just let markets be free. Let markets be free. Quit adjusting crap. Just let markets be free. But they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. So we're going to see if there's an adjustment of the federal funds rate tomorrow. The FOMC meeting, it's a 2-day meeting. As far as I know, it always is. So first one was today. Then it continues into tomorrow. After it concludes, we're going to have Jerome Powell again walk up to the podium, flap his gums, face holes moving, sloblays coming out, and then the market will move here. And expectation is that you're going to see another 25 basis point cut, which just means 0.25 percentage point cut. And you might be wondering, okay, so that's perceived as good by market participants, whether you agree or disagree. It's perceived by the market as good should that occur. But the market's already expecting it, so is it going to be a sell the news event? Well, there's always a risk of that. Either way, we're going to see some amount of volatility tomorrow. But as noted in this article from CNBC, markets are assigning a nearly 100% probability that the Federal Open Market Committee will approve a second consecutive quarter percentage point at its meeting this week. So there will be some volatility tomorrow. It's just a question of how much. Here's a post from Cryptos R Us. Here you can see very popular analyst with 293,000 followers on X, and also, yeah, massive YouTube channel. I think he's got like 800,000 or 900,000 followers on YouTube. So one of the more popular channels out there in crypto. And so here he wrote, and this is a Bitcoin chart, insight, the correction won't last long. Q1 2021, enormous influx of capital into the market, signaling the cycle was nearing its end. And that's what if you look at that screen, where I'm moving my mouse, that's what he's talking about. Influx of capital, that's what you saw at the end of the cycle. That's what he's citing. I mean, as you were approaching it anyway. I mean, it's pretty much that's basically where it was. And so, but anyway, then he says, March 2024 and December 2025 experienced significantly less capital inflow than 2021 and went through major corrections in the middle of the cycle. And you can see what he's talking about right here. Peaks nowhere near as high. Look at the time period, including 2025. He says currently the level of overheating is smaller than in the previous two instances, and the magnitude and duration of the correction are expected to be shorter. According to analysts, the current market appears to be in a relatively small correction phase, and the probability that the current bullish cycle has already ended remains low. So there's another analyst. He's one of the more popular ones in all of crypto, frankly, with the massive following that he has. He's like, yeah, I'm paraphrasing now, but he saw what he wrote here. Basically, he's like, yeah, very low chances that we're entering a bear market. Very, very low chances. Here's a post from Chart Analyst Crypto Wizard. I love this one. Bitcoin and gold. So there's Bitcoin here in this gold line, even though gold is here with a black line. Maybe I should have changed the colors on that, just kind of thinking through. But anyway, so he's showing what happens price-wise with Bitcoin and gold going back half a decade roughly. And he simply wrote, and this is a post from this afternoon, 3:04 p.m. Rotation begins. A local top is formed for gold. You know what that means. Every time gold pulls back and slows, Bitcoin explodes. Every single time. You should know what happens next for Bitcoin. Open your eyes, don't get trapped. And folks, this is true, and I've been talking about this a lot lately, especially since gold has been exploding, and then in recent days it's actually been pulling back. It fell below $4,000 per ounce after hitting an all-time high just a few days ago, above $4,300. It's had a massive run this year. I mean, it's a truly historic run. We haven't seen anything like this in like several decades for gold, quite literally. But it is the case even without the massive moves. Just directionally, when gold is going up, not so much for Bitcoin. And then when gold starts to fall, that's when Bitcoin goes. And you can see what he's highlighting here. Look what happens with gold when it's going up here. And this is in 2024. Gold's going up, Bitcoin's going down. And then when Bitcoin's going up, gold's going down. And you can see he's just highlighted all these moments, even more recently, where that's the case. And so he's noting here, rally upcoming in Bitcoin, because he does believe that's what's going to happen. And he says for gold, consolidation happening. So he's not promising like this is the top for gold, but if this isn't it, it's going to find a top at some point. That is such a parabolic move for gold, just unprecedented. It's going to find a top, and of course it's going to go down, and that's just more confidence. You would expect XRP to perform very well for moments like that. Here's a post from Chart Nerd. He says, XRP holders, price is currently caught between the daily 20 and 55 EMAs. The 55 EMA sits on the support/resistance territory of $2.70, whilst the 20 EMA sits at $2.56. Price could compress between both these EMAs for a few days before a decision is made. So basically, he's thinking we got, at a minimum, probably at least a few more days of chop, and then something's going to happen. And, that perspective is echoed by all sorts of analysts, even if they're not talking about XRP. We're just in chop mode right now, but it's going to get more exciting in short order. No question about that. It'll be very interesting to see what happens Wednesday when Fed Chair Jerome Powell moves his face hole and the words fall out. It'll be very interesting to see what happens. Here's another one from Chart Nerd. XRP, and mind you, he's been calling for $27, and that's exactly what he's highlighting on the screen here. XRP extensive fib targets wait above as Ripple's native token has been accumulating for many moons since I drew this fractal, with several bullish developments and acquisitions, both TA and FA, point to a vertical breakout on the horizon. So that's technical analysis and fundamental analysis. And he's pointing at $27.23. So I get the sense that even though he's a chart guy that's fairly well known, I don't know that he's in the XRP community, because nobody that I know in the XRP community would say that XRP is Ripple's native token, because that's just fucking not true. Very obviously, Ripple didn't even create the token. It's a token that Ripple uses. So I don't think he's being a fudster or doing anything wrong. I think he legitimately doesn't know. He's just a chart guy. He's got a good track record. Lots of people follow him for a reason. I think he legitimately just doesn't know, and he happens to be charting XRP. That's my guess, because to me, it's just inconceivable that somebody could be well-versed in the XRP ecosystem and say something like that. So I'll let it go, because he's not trying to be a troll either way, very obviously. But he's calling for $27 XRP here. Here's a post from Ether National talking about XRP. He says, when a resistance level is tested more than 3 times and the price continues to accumulate above a major support, that resistance is destined to break sooner or later. Each test weakens the seller's defense, supply gets absorbed, liquidity thins out, and the market builds pressure. Meanwhile, steady accumulation above strong support shows that buyers are quietly taking control. Energy is being stored for an explosive move. Eventually, the chart reaches a tipping point. What once held the price down becomes the launch pad. The breakout is no longer a question of if, but when. XRP. And that was in response to something he was Chart Nerd shared. I think it might have been this one here. Because Chart Nerd, to be clear, I mean, again, he said it points to, for XRP, vertical breakout on the horizon. And this other analyst, Ether National, is like, yeah, it's not a question of if, but when. He thinks this thing's going to absolutely rocket. And he does believe, he's made it clear in other posts, he thinks we're going into double-digit price action. Here's a post from Charting Guy. It says, XRP ETH weekly RSI rejected when I posted about it last. Said to watch for that possibility, but now it looks much more constructive as it has made a weekly bullish divergence, something that hasn't happened since June 2024. I am very bullish on XRP ETH the next 3 months. So he thinks that even that pair is going to perform well in the short term. There's a post here from Altcoin Gordon, because on October 24th, when XRP was $2.45, he was anticipating we were going to see some sort of move here. And yesterday, as we did start to see it move higher at $2.65, he said, hate to say I told you so, but I did tell you, XRP higher. So he's got the conviction there as well. And he's one of the more well-known analysts in crypto too, 831,000 followers. Then there was this post from Chart Analyst CW. The next sell wall for XRP exists at $3. So he thinks that's a key level to watch for. So I don't know if XRP is going to be higher or lower by the time you're watching this, but even if lower, doesn't mean that the charts are broken on the higher time frame, meaning big picture. And I personally still believe the best is yet ahead. I would be very surprised if we're entering a bear market. And if we're not entering a bear market, that means ultimately we're going to have alt season. And if history is to rhyme with itself, and if that happens, it is stupid to think that XRP is not going to participate on that. If everything falls apart and there's no alt season, then of course XRP won't rocket any higher. We already saw the all-time high. I don't think that's probable. I think we're going to see that alt season, and XRP absolutely is going to play a role in that end of market cycle action. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because if anything I say are right, that would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.